We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Bezom and Bezom Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 42b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had asked, where is it that Hesach Hadas is not a problem when it comes to Para Aduma? The Gemara had suggested maybe it's by the gathering of the ashes and the Nesinas Hamayim, the placing of the water. Gemara says that can't be. Lemishmeres lemei nidoksiv. There's a pasuk that says Lemishmeres lemei nida. Rashi says Mashma ditzricha shimur achayazamehen. It sounds like until the sprinkling it needs shimur, it needs to be guarded, meaning you can't have a Hesach Hadas. So the Gemara says, rather, what it's coming to exclude where Hesach Hadas is not a problem is by throwing in the cedar wood, the hyssop, the thread, the lav gufa de paraninu. That's not actually part of the para itself, and therefore there is no requirement not to have a Hesach Hadas. And the Gemara continues, Itmar, we have a machlokas amoroim, shchitas para bizar. Again, if you have the para aduma shechted by a non-kohen, Rabbi Ami Amar Ksher, Rabbi Ami says it's okay. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar Psula, and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says it's Psula, it's a problem. Ula Amar Ksher, now Ula says it is kosher. V'Amri la Psula, some have a version that Ula says it's possible. So the Gemara says, Mesiv Rabbi Yoshua bar Abba l'siyuei l'Rav. Rabbi Yoshua bar Abba asked the following question as a support for Rav. Again, Rav is the one that also said, when it comes to para aduma, if it's shechted by a zar, it is not kosher. So it says as follows. Ein lielo hazoas meimah. I only know by the sprinkling of its waters. She'ein ksherin be'isha kev'ish. That cannot be done by a woman. It can only be done by a man. V'ein ksherin ela biyom. And it can only be done at the daytime. It can't be done at night. Rashi over here says, Ve'ein ksherin ela biyom d'chsev hu yischatebo bayom hashlishi. It's going to be done by Yom hashlishi. So I only know when it comes to the hazoas meimah, to the actual sprinkling of the waters, which is the purification process, can't be done by a woman and can't be done during the night. Minayin l'rabos shchitasa v'kabolas dama v'hazoas dama usreifasa v'ashlochas eitzeres v'ezov u'shnitolas. How do you know that the shechting of the para aduma, the receiving of the blood, the sprinkling of the blood over here refers to the fact that they would sprinkle it 7 times towards the Ohel Moed. And how do I know also when it comes to the burning of the para aduma, putting in the cedar and the hyssop and the shnitolas, how do I know that when it comes to all of these things also, it has to be done during the day? Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, Torah, there's one law for all of it, it's going to be the same halacha. I might think this is true even by the gathering of the afer, the gathering of the ashes, the filling up of the water and the sanctification process. Maybe those also have to be done only during the day. Talmud Lomar Zos, the pasuk says the word Zos as an exclusion. Not everything needs to be done during the day. So the Gemara says, how do I know to include this set and to exclude that set? So once we know there's an inclusion and an exclusion, we say as follows. Everything's learned out from the sprinkling of the waters themselves. Just like when it comes to the sprinkling of the mechatos, it's not kosher with a woman, it's only kosher by a man. And it's only kosher during the day. So too I bring all of these different parts of the avod of the para aduma. Why? Since they also are not kosher to be done by a woman like a man, they too can only be done during the day. And I'm going to exclude asifas afara umiloimayim v'kiddush. We're going to exclude again the gathering of the afer, the filling of the water, the sanctification. Since those can be done by a woman just like a man, they can also be done during the day and during the night. And so the Gemara continues, well, what's the refutation over here? All it's saying over here is a halacha by shchita in terms of day and night, in terms of a woman doing it. What does that have to do with a non-Kohen? Gemara suggests, if you're going to say, from the fact that it can't be done, the shchita cannot be done by a woman, that should indicate it cannot be done by a non-Kohen. So hazas meimah tochiach, I can prove the other way from the sprinkling of the waters. That can't be done by a woman, and that is allowed to be done by a non-Kohen. So the Gemara says, Amar Abaya says, Hainu tiyufte, here's the refutation. Isha my time, and what's the reason why it's a problem for a woman to do the shchita? Elazar v'lo Isha. It's learned out from Elazar. It says Elazar has to do it and not a woman. So Zar Nami, so the same limud can apply by a non-Kohen. Elazar v'lo Zar has to be done by Elazar and not by a Zar, not by a non-Kohen. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ula says, Kol parsha kula mashma motzi miyad mashma umashma memela. the entire parsha is mashma motzi miyad, and memela Rashi here explains. When you analyze the parsha Parah Aduma, you can't treat the entire parsha equally. That all the psukim should be unified. Sometimes you have a situation where one pasuk is excluding, going away from that which the pasuk that preceded it said. Meaning, what the previous pasuk said is pasul, suddenly now will be kosher in the next step, or vice versa. What the previous pasuk allowed, the next step is going to be pasul. There are other psukim that sound like we're continuing with the same ground rules. Whatever was mashma before will continue. It's not changing from the pasuk previously. According to the order of the psukim, you can figure out where it excludes and where it continues along the same lines. And now we're going to darshan the entire parsha, so that was like an introduction to the drasha we're about to say. And the psukim say as follows: Again, talking about the Parah Aduma, you give it over to Elazar. Osa le'elazar velo ledoros le'elazar. This goes to Elazar, but for all generations, it's not to Elazar. So, Ika Diamri, some people say, what does this pasuk mean? Ledoros bekohen gadol. It means for all generations, it must be the kohen gadol. The Ika Diamri, some people say, Ledoros bekohen hedyot. For all generations, it must be the kohen hedyot. Now, Rashi here explains. Elazar shusgan. Elazar was the deputy kohen gadol. So now the question is, for future generations, it's not the deputy kohen gadol, but the question is, who is it? So some opinions say it has to be the actual kohen gadol, and some people say it could be even a kohen hedyot. So the Gemara says, according to the one who says Kohen Hedyot, that makes sense. As Rashi says, if it's not saying explicitly it has to be the Skan or the Kohen Gadol, so obviously all Kohanim are okay. But according to the one who says for all generations you have to do this avodah with a Kohen Gadol, where does that source come from? Gamar chuka miyom kippurim. The Gemara answers it's a gzeira shava from the word chuka. It says chuka by Yom Kippur. It says chuka over here by Parah Aduma. Just like on Yom Kippur, all the avodah is done by the Kohen Gadol. So too over here, when it comes to the Parah Aduma, all the avodah is done by the Kohen Gadol. And now the Gemara continues to darshan the psukim. V'hotzi osa, it says you bring it out. Shelo yodzi acheres imo. What that means to teach is you can't bring another animal together with it. You can only bring the Parah Aduma. Kedetanan, as we learned in a Mishnah, lo haisa para rotza lotze. So let's say you have a situation where the para doesn't want to walk out, it doesn't want to go. So ein motziin ima shechora shelo yomru shechora shachtu. So you're not allowed to take along with it another cow, let's say a black cow, because people might get confused and they'll think you're shechting the black cow. V'ein motziin ima aduma. You're also not allowed to take with it another red cow. Shelo yomru shtayim shachtu. Then people might think that you're shechting two of them. Now what's the problem with that? Shelo yomru shtayim shachtu v'kaimelon shekol melachos hanasos ima poslos osa. First of all, we hold any malacha done with the Parah Aduma makes it pasul. Kedetanan kol osek b'parah mitchila v'atzof. If you do any kind of malacha from the beginning to the end, you do any malacha with the Parah Aduma, poslan osab and malacha, it's a problem. It's pasul because of that malacha. Well, the kama nami, I mean, later we're also going to say v'shachar osa shelo yishchot acheres ima. You're not allowed to shecht another parah along with it. So therefore, you can't bring out another animal with it because people are going to think that you shechted that animal with it. So that's the problem in terms of motziin with it a shchora or a Parah Aduma. Another Parah Aduma, it's going to be a problem. Rebbe says, Lo min Hashem hu zeh. This is not the reason. The reason why you can't bring another parah along is not because people might think that you shechted another Parah Aduma together with it, or people might think that you're shechting a shchora. That's not the issue. Ela mishum shenemar osa levada. It's actually learned straight from the pasuk. It says in the pasuk, v'hotzi osa, you take it out. It has to be alone. It's a drasha straight from the pasuk. It's not that people shouldn't think something is going wrong. Gemara says, "V'tanakama haksiv osa." Tanakama also, why not learn it out from osa? Says in singular, you take it out. You can't take another animal with it. So the Gemara answers, "Man Tanakama Rabbi Shimon." Well, the Tanakama, that happens to be the position of Rabbi Shimon. The darish taimei dekra. Rabbi Shimon holds that you can darshan the reason for the pasuk. What the Gemara means over here is Rabbi Shimon is really learning it from v'hotzi osa, but he's telling you the reason, the logic. It's not just a gzeras hakosov. You can't bring out another animal. There's a reason why it's a problem to bring out another animal. People are going to think think you're shechting the shchora. People are going to think you're shechting two animals. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, my beinayu. What's the difference between the two opinions? They're both learning it out from the same pasuk. It's just a question whether you're darshaning the reason for the pasuk or you're just learning it out. So the Gemara says, Ika beinayu, there is a difference between them, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph.